Hey, Godfather of Anxiety here. Just doing a short video about how we can avoid having a relapse if we have one of these anxiety spectrum conditions, whether it be generalized anxiety, panic disorder, obsessive compulsive disorder, depression. How can we avoid falling back into these mental health issues? And I figured that, this is something that would be very pertinent and very much on the minds of people who are recovering from these mental health issues, or who maybe have recovered pretty much from these mental health issues. Over the last 21 years, I have had 2 relapses. So, I do have some insight, and I've written down some points that I think can help all of you guys and girls out there who, want to stay on the road to recovery and not ever fall back into that dark place that, we start out in with these mental health conditions. So the first point I want to mention is keep following protocol, your treatment protocol. Medication. The amount of medication you're taking, the dosage, as well as when you're taking it, how often you're taking it. Make sure you stick, if medication is part of your recovery, make sure you stick with it. So many people, they start to feel better, and then they slack off on either the way they're taking their medication. Also, keep to the treatment protocol when it comes to therapy. Cognitive behavioral therapy as well as exposure therapy. Make sure you keep doing these things. Keep stretching out. That's the best way to keep from falling back into some of these mental health issues. Follow the protocol. To reiterate, so many times we start to feel better and we're like, okay, I'm better. But with these mental health conditions, if we don't stick to the protocol, if we don't stick to taking our medication and doing our therapy the way that we started to recover in the first place, that can definitely lead us down the road to potentially having a relapse. So that's the first thing I'm going to mention. Next, I always talk about the big 3. Get your sleep, get your exercise, and don't eat in a way to self-medicate. So sleep, you want quantity and quality. Exercise, 30 minutes at least 3 times a week for 30 minutes. And diet, it's not so important what you're eating as it is that you're not using the food to self-medicate or to try to soothe. That's how I ended up weighing over 350 pounds. So you don't want to fall into that category. But making sure you get your sleep, your exercise, and you're in control of your diet is going to be huge in keeping you from ever having a relapse. It's so important. Those things might not sound that great or like, oh, that's something special. Trust me, for mental health, sleep, exercise, and diet is right at the top of the list. So you want to watch that. The next one, monitor your external stress, whether it be family stress, whether it be work stress, whether it be financial obligations. Pay attention to your external stress, because external stressors can lead to anxiety issues, and they also will be a good barometer on how we're coping. So pay attention to this. Don't ignore something when something starts to get big. We can't control all of the stress in our life. Some of these things we're just going to have to deal with. But if we realize we're not dealing with it well, then we'll definitely want to make some adjustments. It's really important, and that we also let our mental health professional know. And this leads into the 4th point I wanted to mention, which is monitor your thoughts, your feelings, and your mood. These will be a very clear window into how you're processing stress. I know for me personally, when I start to, regress, I start having a much shorter fuse. It seems like everybody's driving really slow. I get angry a lot easier. My impulse control in general becomes very compromised. And that, for me, that's a big tell that I am heading in the wrong direction. So you want to make sure that you're also about these things. You have to be honest with yourself about how your thoughts and moods and feelings are. And you also have to be honest with your mental health professional about this, because that will, if you're honest with them, they'll also be able to maybe see something that seems amiss, where maybe something needs to be addressed. And now I have a list of a few questions that you can ask yourself to see if you're starting to maybe regress or go backwards. Maybe you're setting yourself up for a potential relapse. The first question I have, again, it goes right along with what I was just mentioning about thoughts and feelings. Are we getting angry or frustrated easily? Are we having a hard time controlling our emotions? Emotional outbursts. Are we starting to have stuff like that? That is a very important question. And if you realize that you are starting to have issues in that regard, it's definitely a possibility that you could be heading in the direction of a relapse. The second one, are you starting to avoid things? Avoidance behaviors can be very subtle, but if they start to creep back in, that is a big tell that we are maybe potentially heading toward a relapse. So again, this is another question we need to ask ourselves to try to, stop these things before they get too far. The third question, have my original symptoms started to return? So whether it be racing thoughts, panic attacks, and as well as any of the physical symptoms that we have, sometimes muscle tension, the anxiety mask where it feels like your face is being compressed, the dizziness. Are we starting to have some of these symptoms? If we are, then these are things we need to talk to our mental health professional about. And, why I made the video is because so many of these potential relapses and full-blown relapses can be prevented if we're honest with ourselves and we're honest with our mental health professional. If we let them know that we're not processing stress as well, or we're starting to have some symptoms return, that can be they can make adjustments, whether it be with our medication or our therapy. They can help keep us from actually having a full-blown relapse. And I wish the 2 times that I did have major relapses, I wish I'd stayed on top of these things I've mentioned with you guys in this video. One of the big things that has been the precursor to me having relapses is when my sleep starts to fail, when I start not getting sleep, or when I start getting interrupted sleep. Anytime this has happened, it seems to send me in the direction of having a relapse. So that's what, like I said, pay attention to your sleep, pay attention to your moods, pay attention to these things, because the main thing is, if you can avoid having a relapse, that's time that you're getting back that you would lose if you have one. So, stay on top of it, be honest and open with your mental health professional. These medications, sometimes we'll have a medication that works really well at first, but our bodies build up a tolerance to so many of these medications. So you may need either a dosage adjustment, or you may need to try another medication. But if your mental health professional knows that your symptoms are returning, or you're not processing stress as well, then they can make adjustments like this ahead of time before you end up having a full-blown relapse. And again, that will just take so much away from your life. You don't want to be back in that darkness that having a full-blown relapse would lead you to. And then finally, guys, I just want to say, if you do have a relapse, this is not something that you should let define you. Doesn't mean you're weak. Doesn't mean that you're a failure. Not at all. It's not how many times we fall down. It's how many times we get back up that define us. And the bottom line is, these mental health issues are really hard to deal with. External things or tangible things that we can see and touch, at least we see the enemy, we can deal with the enemy. These mental health conditions are so complex. They're not 100% sure of exactly everything involved in the causation of them. I mean, they have some ideas and there's some developing science, but they still don't know exactly what causes them. So this is a tough hand that you've been dealt. So if you do have a relapse, don't let that define you. Don't let that make you feel like a failure. And remember that it's temporary. I promise you that. It's temporary. You will feel better again. It doesn't seem that way when you're in that darkness. I know, I've been there. But trust me, it will get better. And, just don't let a relapse define you. Or if you start to relapse and you catch it. Because I know one of the things that was really depressing to me, especially after my 2020 relapse, was I started to experience some symptoms that I thought were a distant memory, that I hadn't had in, at that point, like 11 or 12 years. And I thought I'd never have them again. And that was a real, that really tested me. And I was able to get through it. But, that's what can happen when we have relapses, because, I think I had forgotten how dark it gets when you're in that, hell of anxiety. It's terrible. But I was able to pull myself back out of it. There was some, medication adjustments that were made. There was, big lifestyle things that had to be changed. Obviously, the global pandemic altered a lot of my routines simultaneously, which laid the groundwork, along with me not getting sleep, for the relapse to happen. But I don't want you guys to have to deal with that ridiculousness, with all of the, and the main thing is the wasted time, right? Because every time we're held hostage by one of these anxiety spectrum conditions, it's robbing us of the most precious commodity, time. Time with our families, time doing the things we are good at and that we love, and really kind of robbing you of your life. So that's why I made the video. I think that it's important to know that if you're getting better, you don't automatically stay better, right? And if you start to slip back, that doesn't mean it's the end of the world. These conditions are hard, and sometimes it's going to take more than one try to get over the hump, but you'll get over it. There's nothing special about me. I promise you that. And I've been able to dig out of it 3 times now. And if it happens a 4th time, I'll dig out again. That's the way I look at it. I'm never going to succumb to these mental health conditions, no matter how cruel they may be. And, now I've learned enough over 21 years where I don't think I'll have to necessarily, as long as I stay on top of all the things I mentioned to you guys in this video. So I just, again, want to take this opportunity. Thank you guys so much for supporting the channel. Like, share, subscribe. tell anybody you know who's going through these mental health issues, or maybe recovering, or who's in a relationship with somebody going through these mental health issues. Let them know about the channel. And I think that there's quite a bit of information on here now that can really help somebody at least work up the courage to get help, or at the very least realize that they're not alone. And I think that's very important. So until my next video, take care.